Thank you so much for sticking with us. We continue with this show this fine Wednesday morning. This is The Viewpoint right here on Good Morning Kenya. My name is Aguko. If you've just joined us, you're in time for the next conversation of the day. And so far, so good. Thank you for keeping KBC your #1 channel of choice this fine Wednesday morning. And one important conversation that we're about to have coming up next is donkey welfare in Kenya. Now, one particular group of animal that we have been using over the many years is the donkey. Well, even as we talk about donkeys, it has been the animal that we call the slave animal. Many of us have seen it being used. You've seen it being beaten up. And some of us have raised complaints. In a few years ago, that is the year 2021, there are some that came up and opposed the selling and the selling of donkey meat, and this is what led to the ban of this particular meat. Now, the ban had been imposed concerning the slaughter of donkeys for their meat in the year 2020, and in May 2021, the ban was lifted after a particular slaughterhouse and a section of herders came and challenged the ban in court, saying that they were losing revenue. Now, even as we talk about matters concerning donkey welfare in the country, what is your take in regards to this particular matter? Remember, for many years, this donkey has been of great service to human beings. You've seen it time immemorial, the beast of burden and mount. Well, ladies and gentlemen, to help us in this particular conversation as we start, I am with Dr. Raphael Kinoti. He is the regional director for Brooke, East Africa. Karibu sana.
Thank you so much, Ram.
Thank you, Dr. for coming. And even as we start this particular show, I want to pose a question to you, my dear viewer watching from home, about donkey meat. Have you ever tasted donkey meat? Is it legal in the country or not? Is it good for human consumption? In other words, umewahi kula nyama ya punda? Talk to me. Okay. And Daktari.
Yes, sir.
Let's pick it up from, first of all, recognizing Brooke is East Africa.
Yes.
All right.
Yes.
Tell me what is it all about before we get into the nitty-gritties.
Thank you so much. Brooke East Africa, we are an NGO. Actually, we're based here in Kenya, though Brooke works all over the world as the headquarters in London. But then Brooke East Africa, we're in Kenya, based here in Upper Hill. But then here we work in East Africa. We have projects in Kenya, in Uganda, in Tanzania, in South Sudan, and Sudan itself, and Somaliland.
What's your mandate as?
Our mandate is animal welfare. And when we say animal, actually we make a bit of specialization with a group of animals we call equines. Equines are horses, donkeys, and mules. So those are what you may call working animals. So we want to target those animals, or rather we target those animals in our work. And our major thing is talking to wananchi in groups, in individuals, on how actually they can work with these animals in a bit of a better way. Because you know, Ram, in most of the places around Kenya, these animals are misused. But some of them are misused because then the mwananchi doesn't really know how to go about it. So we give them advice on how actually they can get to use these animals better, raise their welfare. And I know actually KBC ran our program for many years called Mtunze Punda Akutunze. So then we're saying, when you take care of this animal, the animal actually eventually takes care of your livelihoods, because these animals are kept for human livelihoods.
And of course, punda, the word punda, this particular animal has been used even politically.
Yes, yes.
Some say punda mechoka, punda meumia, you know. We've used this particular term. But now let's talk about this particular animal. when I started, I mentioned the ban that was there. And I would like to quote you, Daktari.
Yeah.
And you said this, and I quote, that the decision to overturn the donkey slaughter ban in Kenya was terrible news for donkeys and hugely distressing for donkey owners, many of whom fear their donkeys will be stolen from them and in turn their livelihoods. And he went further and said that we are hopeful that this petition will amplify the voices of those owners and alert the government to take urgent action to once again ban this cruel trade.
Beautiful.
And of course, those were your words.
Those are my words. Those were my words.
Why do you take this particular stand here?
Ram, there is a history here.
Yes.
Africa has been having donkeys now for close to 7,000 years. These animals have been serving Africans for those years.
Yes.
In Kenya, because then actually the people who look at the domestication of animals, they actually now currently research is saying the first domestication of donkeys was actually in the Horn of Africa. So around our area actually is where the donkeys were first used. Donkeys haven't been used as meat animals. They have been used as animals for work.
Burden.
Burden, beasts of burden for many years.
Yes.
But then, come 2016, investors came to Kenya. And they told the government, this is a lucrative business. Please, government, help us to open slaughterhouses. And instead of the government opening one, instead of the government opening 2 or 3, they opened 4 slaughterhouses spread all around the country. Our first question was, where do we have donkeys? Do we have the numbers of these animals?
No, Dr. What is wrong with the opening of these slaughterhouses? Because I'm even looking at the Constitution.
Yeah.
Have we broken the Constitution? We have the Meat Control Amendment Act of 2012. Have we broken the Constitution? The truth is,
Ram, we haven't broken the Constitution, but let me give you a scenario here.
Yes.
You don't bring in a value chain and say, sell this thing when that thing is already not there. Do you know what you're doing? You're beginning to bring conflicts already. Because people don't rear donkeys for meat. They rear them for their work. When you begin to bring in this value chain there and tell people, sell donkeys for meat, you know what happens? People now begin to look for this commodity on the donkey. It is not there. Then they begin to steal from one another. And that is exactly what happened. So we said, government, can you push in funds to develop this sector? So that we have numbers? Because then when we tell investors, slaughter donkeys, where are they? Can you push in money? Because then the donkey sector has been orphaned. It hasn't been given money. We haven't done any research on the donkeys for donkey years, as we say. Now, when you bring in the whole issue of slaughter, what actually did we see all of a sudden? Everybody, a woman actually who has been working with the donkey in the course of the day, they tie it outside the house. Tomorrow in the morning, they find the donkey is not there. Why? The local boys have come and stolen the donkey of this woman and gone and slaughtered it somewhere and sold the skin, because then it's very valuable, and actually gotten away actually of deboning and getting the meat and selling. So when you open a value chain and you're not thinking about the supply side of things.
You're only thinking about the demand side.
You're thinking about the demand side.
Okay.
So the question is, where are these donkeys to be slaughtered? Because
where
the numbers
come from?
Our numbers don't add up.
I was looking at the numbers. We have reduced in terms of the donkey population in the country.
Our population, my friend, has been dipping.
In
2009,
yes,
the census said we had 1.8 million donkeys.
1.8, and now it's 1.2.
Now is 1.1, almost 1.2 million donkeys.
Okay.
So then you can imagine the numbers are shrinking, and they're shrinking because of these slaughter that was opened up here.
Daktari,
yes.
What is the solution? Is it a constitutional matter or a social matter?
I think it is both. Both. Why? We have lived with donkeys forever. We haven't been slaughtering them, yet their numbers have not become many. I was asking somebody yesterday, if we said we're not slaughtering cattle for the next 5 years, do you know what will happen? We'll have cattle even in the streets of Nairobi, because there will be too many. But donkeys for all the years haven't been slaughtered, yet we haven't had enough of them. We haven't had many of them all over, because the reproduction cycle of the donkey is just too slow. What we are saying, if the country is not investing money in developing the donkey sector, then we need to stop this and ban the slaughter completely, so that then it becomes a constitutional matter, and remove the donkey from being a food animal. Then is a social matter, because then, of course, there are very few people who now voluntarily sell their donkeys because it's used for work. Almost every donkey that is slaughtered in Kenya today is stolen, and that I'll tell you for sure.
You're sure?
Get donkeys.
You've gone to the ground, you've seen factually that.
My friend, go to Mwea. I will give you an example. Go to Mwea.
Okay.
You find a group of, we are working with the young men there, groups of 15 or 20 of them. You find a group of 15 young men who had around 20 donkeys. Those donkeys have been so much stolen that that group now has 5 donkeys. So these 15 boys have to keep queuing behind 5 donkeys. One donkey runs 2 trips, then you give it to me, I run also a few trips. So the animals are being completely now misused, because then the numbers have shrunk so much. Actually, those boys are telling us every day, where do you get us donkeys? The other day they were telling us, we hear there are more donkeys in Sudan. Why can't you import a few of them? Because then we are here, our donkeys were stolen because of the slaughter. Our donkey carts are here. We are not working. We know the few donkeys that are left here, we are overworking them. We don't have the numbers of these animals. So for now, what we need to do is ban this trade completely. Sort out our house.
So this ban, what does it include, Daktari? You're talking about banning of this trade.
Yes.
Are we talking about selling, slaughter, or just the use of donkeys? How inclusive is this ban that you want to propose? When
we say the ban, actually our major challenge with the ban is on the skin. Because what is the elephant in the room? The elephant in the room, and why those 4 slaughterhouses were opened, is that the donkey skin is very valuable in China.
All right.
So then, actually, all the 4 were establishments by Chinese. Because then they say this skin, you go and produce their local traditional medicine that they call a jiao. Now, a jiao, they will say it makes you look younger, and they make lotions out of it and give somebody libido and things like that. Now, the problem is, it is in the same line with rhino horn. Chinese medicine will tell you rhino horn is completely valuable, it heals. So
there's some form of competition between these 2 commodities?
Not really competition, but then each of them actually goes its own way. Because then Chinese medicine has a multiplicity of ways that they say this heals this, that heals that. So now the donkey thing makes you younger and all that.
Okay.
And so then, when that came, and you know now you can never satisfy that market. That market you can never satisfy. Because then we can use the same language and say, why don't we actually breed a lot of rhinos, so that then we can get the horn and do this wonderful good trade with this country. It is not possible, because then some of these animals, to breed them with those big numbers is very difficult.
It takes years.
So it takes years. So you allow the rhinos to be killed, then they'll be extinct. That's the same way we're saying with the donkey. You allow it to be killed, it will be extinct.
Are you seeing that as a possibility, that at a point in time, this animal that for many years we have been using and has been of great service to humanity will be extinct, the donkey?
Actually, wide note that there was the closure in 2020, and I'm happy, I must really thank the government because they have not yet reopened those slaughterhouses. Any donkey slaughter happening in Kenya is illegal, is behind the house and all this. If we continued with the slaughter the way it was going, actually KALRO, Kenya Agriculture and Livestock Research Organization, and said by this year, 2023, we will be counting our last donkey.
In the country?
In the country. That's why we must thank the government, we must thank the then CS Munya for actually banning the trade in 2020. Why not for that? We'll be counting the very last animal now. And this debate, Ram, is now Africa-wide. Because in Africa, last year on 1st and 2nd of December, African countries, 35 of them met in Tanzania in Dar es Salaam and said this trade needs to be banned. Because then all over Africa, everybody is crying. Donkeys mainly help the poor of the poor and people in arid and semi-arid lands where really drought and, you know, all these emergencies keep happening.
Then, Dr. You see, this thing didn't come yesterday. It has been there for many years. We have 2 points that you've mentioned. One, you said that at some point, some idea came from foreign investors, and you mentioned it, that they proposed, if we can have the donkey trade in the country, it will be a good thing. It will be a positive move. Herders are the ones that proposed, that went to court, to the Kenyan court, and proposed that this ban should be lifted in 2021. And they said, among many other reasons, is that they were losing revenue. If you look at revenue collection, what is it that Kenyans should focus on? Is it revenue collection, the welfare of donkeys? Why should a Kenyan watching us today be interested in this particular conversation that you're having with me today?
My friend, let me tell you, let me go back to that case that you mentioned. There is no single herder that went to court. I have the court ruling. You can take me to court and I will gather people on the streets of Nairobi and say, you know, these are keepers of donkeys and these are whatever.
What happened? Who went to court?
It is the slaughterhouses, the proprietors of the slaughterhouses, and then they pay somebody on the streets and say, you are a herder. You go back to those people, I have met them personally after that, and they are saying,
no herder went to court.
No herder went to court. What herders did actually immediately after that, they gathered over 30,000 signatures and came and brought them to the Director of Veterinary Services and the CS Agriculture and said, we are the herders. These guys who went to court were mercenaries of the proprietor of the slaughterhouses. That's the reality of it. So no herder actually, because then there's no herder who keeps donkeys for slaughter. No single herder. Show me one herder who has 10 or 15 or 50 donkeys that he's saying, these ones, I'm rearing them for slaughter. Show us one. We have gone to the slaughterhouses and asked them 1,000,000 times, show us one herder who has 50 donkeys for slaughter. They can't show you one. Yet when they were establishing those slaughterhouses, they said, we will facilitate Kenyans to produce donkeys. I don't know, we will bring a breed of donkeys from China that produces every, 6 months. You know all this propaganda. Yet China had 11 million donkeys just some 6 years ago. Today, China has barely 1 million donkeys. Their numbers have been dipping. You know, China itself has tried to breed this animal in vain. How do you then come to Kenya and say, oh, we're going to do a miracle, abracadabra, and then we have millions of donkeys that will keep slaughtering?
What about revenue, Dr. What about revenue?
Now, revenue from where, my brother? The problem is that, yes, we need the revenue, but then there are no donkeys to produce our revenue. We have to invest in that sector for a good number of years, for many years. But then look at this. KALRO produced a report in 2019 and said, actually, for the donkeys, over 300,000 donkeys that were slaughtered, Kenya had gotten 1.8 billion shillings. That sounds like it's good revenue. But they went on the flip side and said, if these donkeys were working, They were delivering rice in Mwea, water, they were getting feed for livestock. What would they be earning? 28 billion. So you go for quick 1.8 billion and lose 28 billion. It just doesn't add up. And why is the government losing? Because nobody knows the value of a skin.
Dr. Kinoti.
Yes, sir.
Is donkey meat good for human consumption?
Donkey meat, according to researchers, will not injure you if you eat it. It won't injure you if you eat it. But then the problem is this. The way they are slaughtered, but then also that Kenya culturally, generally, we don't eat donkeys. Just like there are many Kenyans who don't eat pig, pork. You see? It's not in our culture to eat this animal. The problem is that people take donkeys, slaughter the meat, disguise it as beef. Then now they sell it. Food fraud in general. So that's why, because then there's no single donkey slaughterhouse in Kenya. There's no single butchery in Kenya authorized to sell donkey meat. No single one. So then, those who purport to be selling it, where are they getting it from and who has authorized?
But it is certified for human consumption.
You can eat it. If we had enough of them and the culture is allowing, we can eat them. If we had enough of them, the culture is allowing, we can eat them. But it is, as I've said, it is an orphaned sector. No money has been put there since Kenya became independent. And so then how do we really begin to mine in a sector where we put nothing? We put a lot of money in livestock, in cattle, in sheep, in goats, in chicken, you know, poultry and all this. But then no single budget has gone to donkey production in Kenya. No, nothing. Go to government records. Big loophole, while 70% of Kenya, actually over 27 counties in Kenya, deeply depend on counties. Go to Mandela, go to Garissa, go to Marsabit, go to Turkana. All those counties, they depend on donkeys. Yet, nothing has been done in terms of developing this sector.
There's one more important thing that I'd also like to mention here, and this is in regards to a particular event.
Yes.
All right. And for many Kenyans, and I'm sure you must have missed this. Are you aware that we have World Donkey Day? Did you know it's there? And actually, it was last week. On the 8th of May, every year, we celebrate the World Donkey Day. Is that so, Dr. Ari?
That's true, Ram.
And I want you to talk about this particular event.
Yes.
Yeah? Why is it important? Why is it celebrated? And do Kenyans know about its importance?
Actually, thank you so much for mentioning that. Now, we have two events here.
Yes.
The World Donkey Day happens on 8th of May, which you have clearly stated. But then, for a good number of years, Kenyans have, the herders, the donkey owners, have put together actually their day, which is 17th of May, today. And so today, actually, in a good number of areas around the country, the herders are gathering. The people who are actually keeping donkeys are gathering to celebrate this animal. Why do these animal days come? They come to increase the profile of an animal. Everybody, when they want to say they are doing zero work, they say, I'm doing donkey work. I heard the MCAs earlier today say they do the donkey work.
Yeah.
Because the donkey works so hard, yet it is never recognized.
Appreciated.
It's never appreciated.
Yeah.
Actually, look at any disaster scene in northern Kenya. When there is too much drought, when you guys beam a TV, beam a camera in that village, you see a lady there, you see a kid, and you see a donkey. And the next to it, you see a skull of a cow. When cows and sheep and goats die, it is the donkeys that are left standing and moving with those households, bringing water, bringing even that relief food from that small rural market. The Donkey Day that we are celebrating today and the 8th of May, we want to say, Kenyans, we need to recognize this animal. As you're moving around the road, and we even keep telling motorists, as you're moving around the road, please know there is a Kenyan there who is trying to eke out a living, who is crossing the road with his donkey, carrying probably water or carrying some bag of rice or whatever it is, trying to make out a living. Donkey carts need to be allowed in our roads. You go to a town like Naivasha and you see actually almost a third of the town is supplied water by donkeys.
Hold on, Latari, hold on, Latari. Yes. Why would you propose that on our roads? Okay, with particular road, if I may ask.
You know, roads are not just made for cars. Roads are made for pedestrians, roads are made for bicycles and everything, including donkey carts.
All roads?
We need to improve our roads to that level.
Would you, Doctor, would you put a donkey cart on a highway?
We need to have a provision for that. Okay. Because go to a small town like Moya, and you see the whole of the economy of that town is actually run by donkeys.
Okay.
It's the donkeys who go to the rice paddies and get the rice to the millers, and then now the millers do the milling. If the donkeys are not there, now when they bring the rice from the paddies to the town, where are they supposed to pass? If that town doesn't give an allowance of how actually a donkey cart is able to move there.
But as Kenyans, we need to recognize this animal. We need to give it some form of importance and value. And that's why today we are celebrating it. That's why last week we celebrated World Donkey Day.
Very, very true. Very true. Very true.
Well, let me add some spice there.
Yes, please add.
Jesus Christ entered Jerusalem
on the donkey. Oh yes, this is actually lots of the keepers of the donkeys will tell you the donkey has a cross even on the back. Go look at the donkey from top nicely and well, and you see, that cross on the shoulders, and they say, this is that sort of an animal. It is the only animal that is recorded anyway in a history to have talked. It spoke to a prophet, So donkeys are amazing.
The only animal to have talked.
The only animal to have talked. But then also, when you look at everybody, for example, described in the Bible, their world, donkeys are mentioned. And I'll tell you this. They did an excavation the other day. The tomb of the first and second of Egyptian pharaohs, they were buried with 10 donkeys each. Why? Because then it was believed that in the world where they are going, they must need donkeys. That's how critical donkeys are.
They're a sign of wealth, a symbol of wealth.
Yes, they are a symbol of wealth, but so critical. When you look at those pyramids of Egypt, they were built by donkeys actually. In that civilization, the animal that was really used, they domesticated the cow, the ox, ahead of the donkey. But when the donkey was domesticated later, it became a perfect animal because it's handy, it doesn't chew the cud. A cow will need to chew the cud overnight, but a donkey will not need to do that. So it's wonderful, it's an amazing animal that we need to celebrate.
Latari, final point I want to give you. Your recommendations to the government in regards to matters concerning the welfare of donkeys in the country.
I'll say bush slaughter. We need to work on it by all means. And I must thank the County Commissioner for Kiambu, who is actually working overtime in Deya to ensure that is curtailed. We must really say the police, please, a donkey that is slaughtered in the bush is a donkey that was stolen from a lady somewhere, and it's creating a challenge. Number two, I'll plead with the DVS, the Director of Veterinary Services, kindly remove donkey skins from the list of the skins that are exported from Kenya. We don't have enough donkeys in this country. That inclusion of donkey skins as an item to be exported from Kenya is fueling a lot of bush slaughter and is fueling a lot of stealing of donkeys. You remove that, it will be a big service to the women of this country in particular.
All right. That is Dr. Raphael Kinoti, Regional Director for Brooke, East Africa.
Thank you,
Dr.
Thank you, sir.
It was a pleasure.
It was a pleasure.
It was a pleasure.
Thanks.
And it is on that note that we bring this conversation to a close. My name is Aguko. Thank you for choosing to be with us all the way from morning till now. it's now time for me to wrap up my bags, pack up my things and go, because News Check is coming up next. This is Good Morning Kenya.